Hi, Cherie here, and today I'm going to show you how to make a zipper bracelet using all kinds of beads and buttons. Everything you need is going to be in the kit. You'll get a booklet like this that will also give you step-by-step instructions, but sometimes it's a little bit better to see things than to just read them, so we're trying to cover both bases with this. In your kit, and I'm reading along in the instructions so I remember, in the kit you're going to get a 7-inch zipper. 7-inch zipper will fit most wrists. A normal average wrist is about 7.5 inches, but you have a 1/2 inch on either end of the zipper besides the zipper part, which you can adjust the size of this bracelet. If somebody has a much bigger wrist, you might have to go to a bigger size zipper. These are hard to make for other people, only because you have to kind of fit it as you go along when you first start to make sure that it has a good fit. It's not something you can do later on. If you have a small wrist, that's just a little bit easier to adjust. So you're going to get a 7-inch metal zipper, matching thread. We bought black zippers because we didn't want to try to get into colors and have to decide that. So it's a black zipper with a brass metal teeth and zipper pull. But I'm going to suggest, and in your kit will be both gold and silver color metal buttons. I like mixing the two because then you can wear it with anything. You're not set with one metal color. There'll be black buttons and white buttons. There'll be buttons with a shank, which I'll show you in a minute what that means, and there'll be flat buttons with 1 or with 2 or 4 holes. It'll just be a variety. If you have things like this on your own at home, I would suggest pulling those out and looking through them and using some. Some people have like a button box that might have been their mother's or even their grandmother's, that you might have special sentimental value buttons that you could use. You can also use beads. There'll be some beads included in the kit. You'll also get, let me check. Oh, besides beads, you'll be getting something called like a nail head stud, which has prongs on the back, which I will show you that in a minute too, and I'll tell you how to use it. Some of the other things you might want to have on hand, I think we're going to include a needle and the matching thread and a piece of elastic, which I'll show you how to use. I'm trying to think what else. I think that's about all that's going to be included in the kit. What you'll need on hand in addition to this is a pair of scissors, and any kind of scissors will do. These are just regular old scissors. If you happen to have these kind of scissors, these work wonderful. If you're doing any kind of crafts, I suggest you invest in this kind of scissor. They're wonderful. Get them at Joann's when you use your coupon. The other thing that you might need is a pair of pliers. These are called flat nose pliers, but needle nose pliers will work. These are to bend down the prongs on the studs that you're going to be using. If you don't have anything like this, sometimes you can press them down with the tip of a metal spoon or a flat, what do you call it, a flat screwdriver. You just, start pressing them in towards the center. You just need something strong to press those prongs down because they're going to go through two pieces of fabric and then press down. The first 2 or 3 steps are the hardest physically to do. The rest of them, it's more of a planning, decision, design kind of a thing, which could be difficult, but that's why we tried to keep it with black and white, and so you didn't have a lot of decisions. If you have other colored buttons on your own that you want to add, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm probably not going to finish the whole sewing of one of the bracelets, but I have a couple finished ones to show you. Let me just check to make sure I have everything else needed. Okay. I'm following along in my booklet too, so I'm sure to follow the steps the way they're outlined in the booklet. So now what I'm going to be doing is turning the camera down to my supplies, and I happen to have this handy little bead board that's made especially for making bracelets. But any kind, if you have a jewelry board, a jewelry making board, where you can separate some of your supplies, that would be handy. If you don't have anything like this, I would suggest like a not a washcloth, yeah, a washcloth or a hand towel that you can spread out, so especially when you're using the beads and things, they don't roll away. And you don't want to work on something patterned because that might interfere with your design work. So you're going to have probably a nicer spool of thread than this. This has got to really be old because it's on a wooden spool, and I don't know, they haven't done that for years. Now I have to take this over to the light to see where I can start it. There we go. Okay, now I have a bad tendency to take too long of a piece of thread because I don't want to keep threading it. But if you take too long of a piece of thread, it tends to get tangled, and you don't want that. So I'm just going to get my piece of thread, and I have my needle here. And if you're like me, I have trouble threading needles, so I have a needle threader, and you poke the wire of the needle threader through the eye somehow. I have to hold it over closer to the light. It's kind of weird to have the right light for the video. I don't have much light for working. There, okay. Now I've got it threaded through the eye of the needle, and then finding the end, wetting it a little bit. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that video on Facebook of these I'm sure it's all Asian children threading a needle, and it's so cute because they wet it, and then they just still have trouble. Okay, like I say, I had to come over into the light. Well, this might take the whole video, just trying to thread the needle. Okay, now I have it through. And then you just pull the threader back through the eye of the needle, and your needle is threaded. If you don't have a needle threader, and maybe you're just really good at threading needles, which would be wonderful, if you take a strip of paper like this and fold it in half, and it has to be the size that will fit through the eye of the needle. Let me put the needle down for a second. But if you fold it in half, this one, it has a fairly long eye, but it's still pretty narrow. If you take that paper, and where is that eye? Like I said, the light, anyway, you put it through the eye of the needle, open this up, put your thread through that loop that you made of paper and pull it through. It works the same way. I'm not going to push my luck and try and redo it. So hopefully you all are familiar with hand sewing, because this requires, it's all hand sewing. And I'm just going to make a knot in the end of my thread. And the first thing you're going to do is with the closed end of your zipper, and I have, which is the end that has the little metal, let me find one that's got one. It's the end that has this metal tab. That's the closed end of your zipper. That's the end of the zipper we want. And what you're going to do is stitch it closed. Now, I'm using black thread on a black zipper, so I thought I would get out, this is a white zipper, and here's that metal tab at the end of this is the closed end, this is the open end. So I stitch it with black thread just to show you what you do. You just line up the two ends as close together as you can, and just do an overhand stitch to stitch the two halves together. The other thing, we're providing you with a zipper. If you really have a lot of fun with this and you want to make some more on your own, you can use any kind of zipper. This is the nylon coil kind of a zipper that were really popular way back when I used to sew. Now this was a really long zipper, but I cut it to length. I just cut the end right off, and this, so it doesn't come undone. On a zipper like this, I would just apply some glue right on the teeth. Just glue it so it doesn't come apart. You could also take a few stitches to replace like that metal thing that would have been right about there, just to make it sure that it stays sturdy. But like I say, zippers come in all sizes and lengths. Here's another, this is a black one. Oh, you know what? Oh, this is the right size. Okay, this is a black metal zipper, but it also has black metal teeth and a black zipper pull, which could be interesting. But again, it's way too long. And a metal zipper, you can cut it. I would measure it, do a few stitches, or apply the glue right at the length where you need it before you cut it, and then cut it. And you might have to wiggle the teeth a little bit to get it to come apart, but you could still use it. Here's another one I found that's way too long, and this is an interesting white zipper that has really very large teeth, but they're plastic, and you would do the same thing. You would just, I would say, stitch over at the correct length, and then maybe apply a little glue and cut off the rest, and they'd be perfectly acceptable to use, and you have a lot of fun with that. But you're going to have a zipper that's the right size. So after you stitch those two together, and this is my end, see what I mean? The black stitches don't show up, so I stitch those two sides together. That's the first step that you do. Then the next thing, you're going to be included in the kit some elastic, and this is just 1/2 inch elastic. And I'm thinking about this because you can use any color zipper you want when you're doing this, but I've only seen elastic, flat elastic like this, that comes in white or black. So you would use whatever color you have on hand, or whatever comes, you know, close to what you're using. You don't necessarily see this. So the next thing you're going to do is at the open end of your zipper. This is the part, I've already done this step, so, but this is the open end of your zipper where you zip your zipper up. This normally would be open, but I've already put the elastic on this one. So you're going to get a little piece of elastic. What you're going to do is kind of, the two ends don't have to meet perfectly, but you're going to want to trim this piece of elastic so it's the right length. You could do it after you do this next step if you want. That would be fine. So I've laid this piece of elastic this way. And this is where you're going to use the metal studs. Now I've included a big one just to show you. This is see, it's got prongs, sharp prongs on the back side, but they're not going to use anything this big. We might put some little bit bigger ones in that you can use to decorate the bracelet, but this is just to show you what the prongs look like. The size you're going to use are going to be more like this size. And it does, see the sharp prongs on that side. So what you're going to do is, and I'll just show you further up just to show you how it works. You're going to, from, this is the right, whoops, this is the right side. You're going to push it through the fabric, and sometimes you have to wiggle it. And what I have actually done, I mean, I have pliers, so sometimes I push in the middle, or if you have, you can use anything like a chopstick, or as I mentioned earlier, this is where you might want to use flat nose screwdriver, and you want to push so those prongs are sticking up, because you still have to put a piece of elastic over it, and you want the prongs to come through that elastic as well. And this takes a little work, but once you get it through, I'm going to take that stud out. Once you get it through to the other side, you can see the prongs sticking up there. If you have pliers, what I did is I grab the prong and fold it in towards the middle to do it all the way around, and then you come and you pinch tight the prongs and fold them down in towards the center of the stud, so they're nice and tight, because that you want a little give in that. Well, let me get it over an area that's white. You want some give there, because this is basically how you're going to put your bracelet on. You're going to unzip it a little bit, but you want a little bit of give there so that you just have some more room for the button. So then the next thing you're going to need to do, which is an important part, is you're going to find a focal or a focus button, which a pretty button. You know, let me show you. These are two that, one that I made, and this is the original one that I bought at a craft show. And this is the focus button on this one. And where's, oh, this one is a brown zipper, so I have this kind of square button. That's my focus button on this one. So this is the important part where you have to figure out the fit of the bracelet, because you're going to want to sew it. If you have a bigger wrist, you're going to do like I did and sew it towards the cut end of the zipper. This is the end of the zipper that you stitched or glued the ends together. If you have a smaller wrist, you can do it right over this metal piece, or you might need to come up the zipper a little bit, especially for someone who has a very, very small wrist. So that is an important step in doing this whole thing. What I would suggest, and you need a shank button. And if you don't know what a shank button is, you can see that one in there, but I have some other examples. A button like that. And I don't have any, well, I do have, oh, I wouldn't consider that a shank button. Let me put that on the other side. Some shank buttons have just a metal loop like that. That would work. This one's a little bit tiny to be the focal button. Again, here's a shank button. It just raises up a little bit. So what I would suggest is, when you're first doing it, I put the zipper around my wrist, zipped up, and kind of saw where it had to meet. And this open little hole right here that you can see, it was right just past the metal, this metal thing. So I knew about where to put that button. But I would suggest sewing it on with just a few stitches first, and then trying it and seeing how it fits. And if it fits good, fine, you can go ahead. I would add then a few more stitches. If not, you're going to have to cut it loose and try it again. So now you have your elastic end on, secured with your metal studs, and you have your focus button or clasp. This is actually the clasp of your bracelet sewed on. So now you're going to want to see how it fits. Now, sometimes I have a hard time. Let me get my thread out of the way. So you're going to bring this up and over and around that button. So here's my ends with the studs. Here's my focus button that's sewed onto this part. And here's my zipper tab. So when I'm wearing the bracelet, I would zip it up as close as I can get, like that. So that's like part of your design. Now, these ends that are showing, you want to kind of hide those. So what you're going to do, if you have like a chalk pencil, you know, if you're a sewer or just a piece of chalk, you might want to mark where that hits on the other side of the bracelet, so that when you undo this, see, I can see it's just barely past the metal tab on mine. So I unzip it a little bit and get this off. This is where the elastic comes into play, because you can stretch the elastic and get it off. So, oops, this end of the bracelet, when it was on, comes to just past this metal tab. So the next thing you're going to do is sew on two more buttons that are a little bit on the larger size, and I can't remember let's see what I said in here, because sometimes I change my mind as I go. I just said two more larger buttons. They don't have to be shank buttons, but what you're actually going to be doing, as you can see here, is you're going to be overlapping these buttons and layering them. So sometimes you might, this is a shank, these happen to be all shank buttons, and so do these. And the shank buttons have different size shanks, so you could use shank buttons. But what it's going to do is, once you get the bracelet on, let me wrap this around. I'm not going to put it on me, because as you can see, it's a little hard to get on and off by yourself. So I'm opening this. So when you put this on your wrist and you're going around your focal button, your clasp button, and you're pulling it this way, and then you're zipping it up like that. Here's the cut ends that are the other end of the zipper. You want to tuck those under these next two buttons so they're hidden. These two buttons hide this cut end. Let me show you on the other one, because these stick out. These cut ends stick out further. Again, I'm going to unzip it a little bit. Oh, and that just reminded me to tell you something else. Okay, so see, yeah, these cut ends stick out much further. And so I want to hide those, so I just tuck them underneath those next two buttons. And the studs that we put in kind of show, and they're decorative, but they don't show a lot, but they're there so that you don't just see a blank space. What I used to do, and we tried to make this as simple as possible for people who are buying the kits, because we don't know what you have on hand or what you're familiar with, but what the person who I bought this from what she did, obviously she was selling them at craft shows, and they were pricey. I thought they were pricey. She sewed, or not sewed, but this is a little piece of like an iron-on fabric that had the name of her company and her name on it. And that's how she connected the two ends of this zipper. So when I first started making these, I had iron-on fabric. This is like a patch that you would put on a garment or something that you get a tear on, and you put this iron-on fabric on the back side to hold it together. And it's just a little piece of that holds the two ends together. I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy it just to do that, but if you have some on hand, that's perfectly acceptable to use as a way to attach those two ends of the closed end of the zipper. So, as I said before, I'm not going to go on and sew a lot of things onto this zipper bracelet, as it just really takes a long, well, it takes a long time to do it. And this is why we thought it would be better in a kit that you can take home and do rather than a class, because by the time you're choosing all the buttons and figuring out where to lay them, and then you're sewing them on and chatting with your neighbor and everything in the meantime, it might take a couple classes. But as you can see from these two finished bracelets, there's a lot of different kinds of buttons on here. There's metal buttons, there's buttons with designs. I haven't done this on any of these, but like here's a button that has a rhinestone in the middle of it. Like I said, this one was a brown zipper, so this is a little wooden button. And the other thing that's fun to do, and you'll have included in your kit, this is a little charm that kind of hangs off the end or the edge of the zipper. And the other thing that I had thought of, and we'll be putting some of these beads in here too, actually. Here's the one that I'm actually working on. I'm gonna sew a flat button on here just to show you what I had in mind. Now let's see if I can find well, that won't work. I was looking, oh wait, this would work. Okay, this is a flat black button. It's got kind of a neat, like a flower design. It's got two holes, and I think I'm going to use that up here. It's big enough that I can go like this and tuck the end under, and it'll fit under this one. So, like I say, because the lighting that I need for you to see what I'm doing is very bad for me to see in real life what I'm doing. But I've already knotted my thread. I got to get the zipper out of the way for a minute. The button out of the way for a minute. So I'm poking it through my zipper, and I'm close. You don't want to go across the zipper, so you're going to be sewing things on one side of the zipper or the other side of the zipper. So I've got my thread through one side, throw it through one side of go down through the other. I just want to make sure I don't go over the zipper. And this is where I said if you use thread that's really long, sometimes you end up, it gets really tangled. So now I'm going to try and go through again. Because in your kit will also be some of these little beads. These are called E-beads. They're like a size up from a seed bead. And I'm going to string one on my thread and then go down through the other eye of the button. And now I've got a little pearl kind of a bead in the middle of my button, just to give it a little bit of interest. So I actually would probably go through it a couple more times, but like I say, the lighting looks great for the video, but for me to actually see what I'm doing is really bad. So on the other side of this, I think I would put a white button. But I think I would look for one that was a little bit bigger than this, or I even have some cloth covered buttons in here. And so that way, as I come back with my other end of the bracelet, like this, get that zipper through there. These ends, once I get it zipped up, these buttons hide these raw ends. And in the instructions, it'll also tell you you can use a little bit of tacky glue to run along the cut edge of your zipper and to apply to any knots on the back side. That will help make them hold, you know, for a much longer time. And then you can, like I say, you can use them on the raw ends of the zipper and your elastic, and it just hides them underneath that next button. That's what it's supposed to do. So once you get your focal button and maybe these two buttons sewed on, you might want to lay out your zipper and then kind of design what you're going to put on this bracelet. Let me get these two out of the way for now, and I'll bring them back in a minute. So you're not going to want to go too far on either side of the zipper. You don't want beads and things across the back, you know, because when you put your hand down, it would be in the way. So you don't want it across the whole zipper, but you want to go about 2.5 inches in on either side. And so this is where you could play and kind of design where you're going to put things. Oh, you know what? This would be a neat one, but it's too big for right there, because you want to play around with the size of your buttons. But there's a really neat gold kind of a button, and like I said before, I like mixing up gold and silver so that one doesn't cover the whole thing. And look, here's another big button that might go there. Somewhere, where did I put it? I found a black button that has a rhinestone in the middle of it. Here's a silver button. I've got gold there. I think, well, I don't know if I want metal next to metal, but I might put it over here. So you can get them close enough to the zipper that the zipper is kind of hidden, but when you're doing that, it might be better. The zipper is okay to show because it's part of the decoration. You want to make sure that the zipper can still go up and down. You would never unzip this all the way to here. This is about as far as you should have to unzip the zipper to get it on. So it's mainly at this end you want to make sure that you can zip and unzip your bracelet. Then let's see. Oh, I had put these aside. I mean, you can put, these are just like some clear, these are actually plastic, but if you had some crystal beads, you could put those on here and there. And here's a couple charms. Here's some long kind of silver beads. You could put those on too. That you might want to, you know, do like this alongside the zipper. Again, you don't want to go across the zipper, but alongside it. And then once you get the major part of the things on, the bigger buttons, once you get it kind of designed how you'd want, then you could like move these off to the side, either side, so you kind of remember where you want them placed. Actually, mine has a little channel that I can put them in so they kind of stay there. So then you can pick up your zipper and work on it. If you're working on a towel or a cloth, you can kind of do the same thing so they wouldn't get lost. So let me bring in again, like I say, this is the brown one that I did, and I have some clear button here. Here's my charm hanging off the end. Let's see the other one. Again, she has some, oh, this is a sew-on bead. It's got a hole at each end, and I don't know if we have any of those, but you might have some of those. So that looks really neat, hiding kind of underneath those two buttons. And she's got tucked in here, this is the kind of a pearl button that what it reminds me of is like buttons on a wedding dress down the back. It's got a little bit of a shank, but this is where you can add little beads here and there if you've got an opening that just looks kind of bare. This one has a really nice big heart charm on it. And like I say, if you have charms and things of your own that have a special meaning, this would be a wonderful thing to add to your bracelet. So once you get everything sewed on, like I said, you can come back and add little beads here and there to finish it any way you want. And let's see if there's anything else I need to mention. No, I think I've mentioned it all. And oh, I know, the other thing is starting in January, and we hope to continue it on. Actually, I can bring this back up. So starting in January, we have done these already. We're doing something called, we used to do Creation Station downstairs in the craft room, where we had all kinds of beads and buttons available that people could pull out and make things with. But we can't do that yet. But we are doing something called Creation Station Studio, which is upstairs in the art room. And say you start doing this and you're stuck, you can't figure out what you should do next. You're welcome to bring it to Creation Station Studio, and it is a $5 charge, but that's for the whole month, every Monday. Now in January, I think it's only 3 Mondays, because we're not starting it till the 11th, or yeah, I think it's the 11th. But in February, it should be the whole month. So however many Mondays there are in a month, the $5 fee would cover that whole month. Whether you come or not, it's still a $5 fee, but you have to sign up at the beginning of the month. I don't think they're going to let people, sign up halfway through. Because we have to know how many people are coming in. The number is still limited. But I will be there, and I would be glad to help you with your bracelet if you run into any problems. So check your newsletter. Make sure for the time. I think it starts at 1. It might be 1 to 3. I'm not positive. But check your newsletter and come and first of all, get your kit to do your bracelet. It's a whole lot easier unless you have a whole bunch of stuff on hand. These kits, everything comes in it that you need, and then you can add to it as you want. But then if you do get stuck, come to Creation Station Studio, and I'll be there to help you finish it up. Because the Creation Station Studio, everybody brings their own craft that they're working on, either to start or finish. But it's a nice way to socialize, wearing masks and keeping a safe distance. So hope to see you there, and hope you enjoy making your zipper bracelet.